Time out, emergency video. This established titles company, Scott Shaver, made a video calling it the biggest fraud. It's taken YouTube by storm. Everybody's got an opinion. I'm here to lay down the truth. Here's what it pays to have a journalist's mind, because I watched the video, found it pretty compelling. I thought, Shaver's got a bit of an investigative eye, I like it. But wait, what if we reach out to established titles and Katerina, which I did. I had a conversation with Katerina, established titles. And she provided me with some documents. We had a little conversation. I asked for some verification on stuff, and I'm here to tell you, I'll show these documents to you later in the video, that established titles didn't do anything wrong that I can really point out. They seem to be a legitimate company. But I'll let you decide. We'll go through it. We'll go through Scott Shaver's video. We'll go through my conversation with Catalina. We'll see if we can unravel the truth. Gather around. Papa BostWiki's here to sort out the YouTube misinformation and bring it to you straight. Okay, so this video is blown up like the 4th of July fireworks, like it's Independence Day. Established titles, scam, YouTube's biggest con. Calls out Graham Stephan, Andre Jeek. I don't know who these people are, doesn't matter. Let's talk about this video.
Gamers or the court. If you've watched a video from Graham Stephan, Andre Jeek, some ordinary gamers, or the quartering in the past year, you've probably seen a sponsorship from the company Established Titles. Now, despite glowing reviews from some of YouTube's largest and most trusted creators, this company is a complete scam. Now, I do have to say that I believe most of these creators...
18 seconds in, he's already called this company a complete scam, which, a little bit background in journalism law. Little dangerous to just flat out call companies a scam. Get into a little bit of libel and defamation there, unless you can prove it. But we'll continue.
Don't realize that it's a scam, with the exception of one, who we'll talk about in a minute. But that does not get these guys off the hook, and they need to do more research on sponsorship before accepting the $20K plus a month these guys are making from doing deals with this scam company. Now, before I break down how this company is a scam, I'm going to let these creators in a montage of clips explain what the company wants you to believe they are doing.
All thanks to our sponsor, Established Titles. Their project based on the historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords or ladies in English, and that means as of today, that's right, I'm officially a lord.
Better than that is to give those fun, tangible assets as gifts for the upcoming holidays. And thanks to today's sponsor, Established Titles, you can do exactly that and become a lord or lady.
Shout out to this video's sponsor, Established Titles. They commit to plant a tree with every order and protect the beautiful, pristine woodlands of Scotland. Today's video is brought to you by our friends over at Established Titles. Do you want to help global reforestation efforts? Do you want to help preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland?
So there's actually a couple things. Established Titles is based on this funny concept where you can buy a square foot of land in Scotland, you get a title maybe, and it helps with deforestation and preserving land, a bunch of things going on. My name is Alistair BostWiki. If anybody deserves a title lord or lady, that's the name for it. I bet you in the fine print, it's a novelty. It's a novelty thing. What about the deforestation and the other charitable things that Established Title says they do?
From the buying of land to being given a lord title, and even the planting of trees is a complete lie. After researching this company, I uncovered a web of shell companies devised to hide who actually operates the scam, and what I will show you in this video will truly shock you. So with that being said, let's break this scam apart piece by piece. The first issue is the most fundamental, and that is the fact that when you buy one of their 1 square foot plots of land in Scotland, you aren't actually buying any land at all. What they are essentially selling you is a gag gift known as a souvenir plot. Under the Scotland Land Registration Act of 2012, it's not allowed for these small plots of land to be legally sold. The law states, Land Registration Scotland Act of 2012, Section 22, in subsection 1B, souvenir plot means a plot of land which is of inconsiderable size and of no practice utility, and is neither a registered plot nor a plot the ownership of which has... So basically, the company that owns Established Titles, and I'll get into who they are in a minute, bought up a bunch of large parcels of land and is selling off phony titles to small portions of it. If you were to go to Scotland and try and claim your land, or try and do anything with it really, you would be laughed at because you don't actually own anything.
Okay, so that strikes me as true. I'm sure Established Titles bought a bunch of land in Scotland, and they're selling off these novelty titles that don't really exist. You may not actually own the land, and I'm sure within the terms of service on the website, it actually says that. It discloses that. What are souvenir plots? The plots of land themselves are recognized and referred to as souvenir plots in Scotland. So those souvenir plots are typically too small to be registered with Scottish Land Registry directly. We maintain our own private record. So what happens is, yeah, you're purchasing a derivative of a plot of land in Scotland, and they hold ownership of the plot still, but they put your name on it and say it's yours. You know, I don't know how similar or not similar this is to naming a star after you in some distant galaxy, and whether that your name is really on the star or not. My guess is it's similar, but who knows? It's a novelty gift. This is an example of deceptive marketing. But I do like Scott Shaver some credit here for going in and doing the research behind Scottish land law.
Established Titles is still the landowner, and they give you a worthless piece of paper telling you that you own land when under the laws of Scotland, you clearly do not. Another big selling point they have is that if you buy a piece of land in Scotland, the custom is that you now become a lord or lady and can add that official title to your name. Sadly, this couldn't be any farther from the truth. Now, this old wives' tale has been around for a long time, and the Court of the Lord Lion, which is the highest court in Scotland in regard to giving out titles, said this to clear up the situation. Ownership of a souvenir plot of land does not bring with it the right to any description such as laird, lord, or lady. The words lord and lady appear to those on whom a peerage has been confirmed and do not relate to the ownership of land. Ownership of a souvenir plot...
Maybe it's just me, but anybody who actually thinks they're getting a lord or ladyship, a peerage, by buying a little piece of land from some site in Scotland, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on me again. Deceptive marketing, but it's ultimately a novelty gift, and it helps out charity. And that's kind of the key point that I want to get to, is the charity part. Is this a scam? Is it a fraud?
Of land is not sufficient to bring a person otherwise ineligible within the jurisdiction of the lord line for seeking a coat of arms. So right there from the highest court in Scotland, they said flat out that ownership of land does not bestow a title of lord or lady to you. So established titles is 2 strikes down. And before we put the final nail in the coffin, I think it's safe to say that they are a scam. They don't actually sell you any land, and they have no right to bestow a title of lord or lady to you. Now, the final issue I want to bring up is the fact that they say that they plant trees with every purchase, and that by buying one of their plots of land, you are saving the woodlands by buying it and preventing its use for other means. Now, established titles does not plant any trees, despite what their YouTube sponsors tell you. The only thing established titles does is donate money to an actual tree planting company called One Tree Planted. On top of that, they have never provided any evidence that they're actually donating money to back up their claims. So
here we get to the crux of it. Established titles, when you purchase their little souvenir gag gift on established title and get to call yourself a lord, but not actually a lord because Scottish law says blah, 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 blah. It's a charitable donation. It's kind of fun, right? They say a novelty gift, and part of that money goes to 501c3 to plant trees. Do they actually make the donations? That is the key. Is this company taking some of their profit and donating it to what they say they do, preserving trees or preserving Scottish land? Is that fraudulent or not? Because that would be a scam and fraud. They said they were donating money, and they weren't donating. Well, let's see what Katarina has to say. Let's see if we have proof. Established titles is a fun gift meant for a good laugh and not to be taken too seriously. We bought a couple 100 acres of land in Scotland, and we have pledged to protect and keep it, and we work with trees.org, which is Trees for the Future. Let's take a look. Okay, Trees for the Future is indeed a registered 501c3 nonprofit. Its tax ID is public, so it appears that Established Titles is indeed working with a charity. Some of their profits are going to trees.org, which is a nonprofit that plants trees. And then let's see, she sent me a payment record. And right here we have, I might blur out some of this. I'm going to blur out the bank details. But we do have debit amounts of money going to Trees for a Future. One Tree Planted. So, okay, there we go. One Tree Planted, which is in Scotland. And Trees for the Future. So they spent 150,000, Trees for the Future, and then 10,000, 1,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 7,500, 3,000, 5,000, and then 8,000 on One Tree Planted, Incorporated. So given these receipts, I would have to say it's not a scam. They are indeed sending money to the 501c nonprofit. Scott Schaefer says it's the biggest con, but he doesn't offer any proof that they haven't donated money to land preservation or to preserving trees, their actual claims.
So basically, you have to take the company's word that they are really donating money to plant trees.
So they spent 150,000, Trees for the Future, and then 10,000, 1,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000.
Finally, the land that they own is already part of a protected land plot away from any major cities. So by giving them money, you are not actually helping the environment in any way. You're just lining the pockets of these scammers. Now, at this point, I think I've made it very clear that this company is a scam.
This has led to hundreds of acres being conserved. They bought the land in Scotland and are presumably not doing anything with it, so conserved is a fair definition, and millions of trees being planted, not to mention the thousands of smiles on people's faces as they gift it to their family members, loved ones, close ones, and friends, and in some cases their pets. So their defense is this is one, a novelty gift, two, we actually own the land in Scotland, it's being preserved, and three, we are donating some of the profits to charity, and that charity is indeed planting trees.
Hopefully, most of these big creators will cease partnerships with this company. Some of these creators do seem to know that the company is at the very least fishy. Spencer Cornelia, former gristlayer, has been responding to people leaving comments on his videos the past few days about the company being a scam, and Spencer's response is basically he thinks it's okay if it's a scam because it's harmless and they're planting trees with your money. So according to Spencer's logic, if I were to steal something from his house, pawn it off, and then use some of the money to plant some trees, he would be okay with it because ultimately I did something good.
That is a false analogy between here's a novelty gag gift that's maybe presented deceptively. Whose fault that lays on? I think ultimately you could argue it lays on established titles to correct the YouTubers in their marketing and influencer campaigns and say it's a novelty gift. And I don't know, I need to go watch these ads in full to really determine what the wording is on it. But him saying breaking into a house and stealing stuff and pawning it off is the same as established titles. It's not forcing you to purchase anything. It's a little bit of marketing, a little bit of puffery. It's like, go to Wish, buy these AirPods. They're cheaper.
So with all that being said, I think it's fairly clear this is a scam company. But let's go into just who actually owns and operates this company.
I'm not sure it's a scam company.
It's a whole web of different companies that's involved in this, so it's pretty crazy. So if you actually come to their website, Established Title, this is it right here. And one thing I have to mention right at the top right now, they have a Black Friday sale, and they always seem to have a timer. You can come back any time of day, anytime, and there's always a countdown clock of 1 hour, so you gotta get your deal right away. And that's a very scammy thing that a lot of...
Okay, it's not a scammy thing per se. It's a high pressure sales tactic that again is psychologically effective for getting people to purchase products. You see it on a lot of websites. I think Wish even has one, for example.
a lot of these scam companies do, a timer that basically never runs out. You can come back later, it restarts. But if you go down to the bottom of the page, you go to the About Us section of established titles, and you'll see that it has this picture of this lady, and basically it says that this lady, Katarina Yip, created established titles after visiting the Scotland countryside. She fell in love. She wanted to start her company. Great, it's all fantastic. So we can actually look this lady up. I found her on LinkedIn. This is her page right here. And if you go to her LinkedIn page, you can see that she's based out of Hong Kong, which is very interesting. Not in Scotland or anywhere near it, but you can see that she's actually involved. She's currently employed by 3 different companies. The first is called Failed Ventures, where she's the co-founder and president, and she's also a board member of Dalton Boissier, I think that's how you say it, and a board member of Trifecta Retail Ventures. So let's take a closer look at these 3 companies. It's going to be really interesting what we find. So if we go over to Failed Ventures, this is their actual page, and it says "Come fail together," which I think is quite funny.
A quick thing: Katarina being based in Hong Kong doesn't mean anything. Companies, all kinds of companies, are based in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of the financial capitals of the world. London, New York, tax reasons. For networking reasons, the fact that she's in Hong Kong, that the company is on Hong Kong, and that it's under a parent company called Fail Ventures isn't that unique either. Berkshire Hathaway does this. Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, is a big conglomerate that buys a lot of shares in Apple, a lot of shares in railroad, a lot of shares in Taiwan chip manufacturing, and then they can shuffle capital between their own company in a way to prop up Coca-Cola or See's Candy without having to go seek an outside lender. So Fail Ventures, that's not scammy. This is a pretty normal, sophisticated business.
Fail together. So basically what this is, it's a venture capital firm, someone who we'll get into who it is in just a minute, but they pump a bunch of money into this company, and this company tries to set up a bunch of these fairly shady, I would say somewhat scammy companies online. They're all internet-based commerce websites trying to make a bunch of money, and you can see that they have all of the failed companies. They've had like 70 failed companies, and eventually they have 1 or 2.
They're all companies trying to make a bunch of money. That's what all companies try to do. They're all corporate, amoral, financially driven, soulless machines. Every corporation, you name the company, its goal is to get money.
Or 2 companies, their successes and make a bunch of money. And these are their 4 successful companies. They have DealDash, which we'll talk about in just a minute, Dalton Boissier, which is the other company that this lady Katarina works at, which we'll get into, Kamikoto Knives, and Established Titles. So Failed Ventures is the company that owns Established Titles. They also own Kamikoto Knives. Now, if you don't know about Kamikoto Knives, they're another company that is heavily promoted on YouTube. I believe I just saw a sponsorship post from them on the Quartering just the other day. I think he did that as well.
Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Kamikoto. That's right, Kamikoto makes Japanese steel kitchen knives using traditional techniques from Japan.
So they're another big company that's promoted. They're also run by the same company that owns and operates Established Titles. Now, from there, if you actually look at Failed Ventures, we'll go to their About Us section, and you can see these people at the top. These 2 people you need to be aware of. They're at all these companies. There's William Wolfram, who's the CEO co-founder, and Katarina Yip, who is the president co-founder. So keep in mind, those are the 2 people. So from there, from Failed Ventures, they're the ones that own Established. Let's go to the next company. Now, the next company is Dalton Boissier. This is their LinkedIn page. It says they are a manufacturing company located in Hong Kong. This is their actual website right here. If you go down to their All-Star team page and look at their people at the board, you can see William Wolfram and Katarina Yip again at this company as well. And this company seems to be the manufacturing arm of all of these different products they create, as far as the knives, as far as getting sponsorships for Established Titles. That's what this company seems to do. Now, both of these companies are based out of Hong Kong, so China basically. And I think it's very interesting that these companies are based out of a country that has very lax business laws. You can get away with a lot more.
Okay. Being based out of Hong Kong is not a big deal. Ask anyone in business. I mean, Goldman Sachs has a headquarters in Hong Kong. UBS, them being based out of Hong Kong is not indicative of any fraud, scam. If you're thinking about supply chains, and they're also related to Kamikoto Knives, which I'm not going to comment on. I've never experienced a knife. I know nothing about the knife. If you're trying to manufacture knives cheaply, your supply chain is very close, presumably, in another district in China. You can do the marketing, distribution, supplies, and then drop ship them all over the world. Hong Kong makes sense for this type of venture.
Somewhat shady type business practices in Hong Kong and China, as opposed to most Western countries. Now,
That's not true. That's not true. And he also offers it without evidence. Christopher Hitchens said, offered without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Hong Kong is not abnormally known for shady business practices over New York City or London. Where was FTX based? Hong Kong? No, Bahamas. Where was Bernie Madoff based? Hong Kong? No, New York.
What's really interesting is if you look at the 3rd company, which is Trifecta Retail Ventures, they are based out of they have an office in Hong Kong, but they're based out of primarily southern Finland. So they're from Finland, and this company is actually owned by the Wolfram guy that we saw on the other page. So all 3 of these companies were founded by William Wolfram, and William Wolfram is a Finnish man who I believe he has a long history of creating some of these, I would say, shady companies. He dropped out of school and at 16 created the website DealDash. So this was his first company that actually made him a ton of money, and then he has since created these other companies in Hong Kong.
I want you to notice a little bit of a narrative twist in this video, which is that we've shifted from talking about established titles and whether it's YouTube's biggest con and a scam to fail.vc to William Wolfram, who's from Finland, and now we're critiquing I'm not sure what Scott Schaefer's critiquing, but we've moved quite a ways away from established titles.
That now produce these other shady type companies online. Now, DealDash, if you're not familiar with this, I won't go too detailed into it. DealDash is basically like an eBay ripoff type site, but what they have is massively discounted prices on the products. Some products, you can get like a barbecue that's normally like $200, and it's currently going for $1, right? Now, how it works is people bid on these items, and it slowly goes up over time. Now, aside from eBay, how eBay works is the top bidder has to pay for the products. On DealDash, everyone who posts a bid, you have to pay for all of your bids. Now, it does say that in the small print, but most people don't realize that. So people will put all these bids in for like $1, $1.50, $2, and what they don't realize is at the end, even if they don't win the item, they have to pay all of the bids they made. So this company is incredibly shady, and they make a ton.
Okay, that sounds terrible on DealDash's part. I'll give them that, but DealDash doesn't seem to have anything to do with the operations of whether established titles is a scam or a fraud or not.
So what ended up happening was there was actually a lawsuit against DealDash because some of these customers, they were having very deceptive marketing. We're saying like this lady, they have a bunch of ads or this lady.
Here we get to the crux of it. He just said DealDash had a lawsuit against deceptive marketing. And it sounds like DealDash maybe lost that lawsuit. But that's DealDash. That's deceptive marketing. That's not established titles, and that's not scam fraud.
So this guy, Wolfram, has a history of these incredibly, I'll say, shady companies that he operates, and now he has moved pretty much all of his businesses over to Hong Kong, which is really interesting because he is from Finland. So why would he do that? Now, like I said, my opinion is because Hong Kong...
Scott, nice investigative work here. Wolfram definitely seems a little bit shady, a little bit slimy. DealDash, definitely not the most up-and-up company, making secondary companies to supply chain cheap goods and then list them on your bidding company. But Finland moving it to Hong Kong, that means nothing. And Hong Kong, in my mind, is one of the best places to set up a company. That's why so many people set up companies in Hong Kong. That's why Hong Kong is Hong Kong.
Hong Kong and Chinese laws are a lot more lax as opposed to the laws in Finland or most Western countries. So I just think
that's not true.
Incredibly shady. Now, one thing I have to mention is all of these websites, whether you go to established titles or any of the companies that own or work with established titles, there is no mention of them ever having an office anywhere in Scotland or the UK. They are firmly based out of Hong Kong. They have no connection whatsoever to Scotland, and they don't seem to have any offices there. Now, if you actually go to established titles, they do have an address for in Scotland, and that address just leads to one of the plots of land that they have bought. So they do own a bunch of land in Scotland, but they don't appear to have any office.
Okay, so they do own the land in Scotland. It looks like the company established titles bought a bunch of land in Scotland and then marketed as we'll sell off these novelty plots of land and get people to give us money, and we'll pay the mortgage on this land we bought in Scotland, land preservation in Scotland, so it doesn't get deforested or turned into something, an industrial warehouse. And we're also going to donate trees to one plant tree. That is the crux of established titles.
I don't know why anyone would want to do business with established titles. I really see no reason why we want to do that. They're not a legitimate company.
They're not a legitimate company is such a strong word for what, in my opinion, is quite flimsy evidence. They own land in Scotland. They donate money to the charity they say they donate, and they sell the novelty gag gift. You get the little placard. You get the little placard. Yes, do you not actually get the piece of land? No. But that's not what you're actually buying. You're buying a novelty gift, and some of your money is going to a charity. Briefly, at their FAQ page, established titles, here's where the quibble comes down to. Can you refer to yourself as a lord or lady? Yes, our title packs are based on historic Scottish land ownership, and they claim most jurisdictions will allow you to update your title to lord or lady, and you can do so in the documents. Whether that's true or not, it may come down to the jurisdiction of the country you live in. I'm not sure what the rules are for the United States or wherever you live. But if that's really what it's coming down to, is do you really get to call yourself a lord or lady? This alone, this one being deceptive, does not qualify the entire company as fraud.
One thing I want to add at the end, there will be a list below, a pin list of people who have been sponsored by this company. If you know someone else who is also sponsored by it, let me know and I'll add them to the list as well.
Scott goes after all the people that have accepted sponsorship deals from established titles, which is kind of interesting. But from what I can discern, Scott never once reached out to established titles. So here we are. I spoke to Katarina, and she spells my name wrong, but that's okay. It's so Scottish, she can't even spell it correctly. Anyway, she talks about first we shared with creators shortly after the release of the initial video. And let's take a look at the little letter here. So what did established titles say to their creators? We have recently come under targeted, completely unfounded attack on bogus claims from somebody making out a career, personal attacks, blah, 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 blah. Established titles is a fun gift, meant for a good laugh, and we have absolutely been transparent about this from day one. Debatable, but okay. To compare us to going into someone's house and stealing is deeply offensive and not only undermines our own work, but the good work of charities and the creators that we have worked with. I agree with that. That analogy was no good. In the past 2 years, we've done more tangible work in the preservation of woodlands in Scotland than anyone else to our knowledge. This includes donating to plant over 2 million trees and acquiring over hundreds of acres of land and contractually committing to preserve it in its natural state. This year, we are slated to be Trees for the Future's Giving Tuesday partner, matching all donations up to $50,000. It is a shame this attempt to cancel us will make these efforts in the future that much harder. I think if Scott had reached out, he might have been able to confirm some of the stuff that he just put out there as speculation. Anyway, let's continue reading. All the funding for established titles has come from the Galton Voice Limited, which has been mainly funded by William Wolfram. Yep. So like I said, established titles is one company within a parent company that's able to shuffle capital back and forth. And again, I know it might seem shady what they're doing with cheap knives and established titles, but this is He's done business all over the world. Like I said, this is how Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett operate. Without this funding, we would have never been able to acquire our initial plots of land in Scotland or invest in bold marketing efforts we have. Yes, they indeed bought the land in Scotland. That's true. So their defense is this is one, a novelty gift. 2, we actually own the land in Scotland. It's being preserved. And 3, we are donating some of the profits to charity. And that charity is indeed planting trees. Galton Voice, the parent company, has supported us since day one, even though they knew that their initial funding for this conservation project would most likely lead to financial loss. This year alone, Galton has made a multi-million-dollar loss on established titles. Sponsoring all those videos isn't cheap, but has continued to give their full support as they strongly believe that established titles will not only grow to become a terrific business, but also a great example of how you can do well by doing good. That doesn't really mean anything because it means they could have a lot of revenue and they're just choosing to spend all that revenue on a marketing budget, so they have a net income of 0 or a negative net income, which may be beneficial for tax purposes on other parts of their business venture. Let's say it looked like the Kamikoto Knives was part of this VC company. Maybe Kamikoto Knives is making a bunch of money. They want to reduce their tax obligation on Kamikoto Knives. So what they'll do is they'll take all their revenue, they'll spend it into a deficit on the marketing budget in established titles to offset their tax burden in Kamikoto Knives. Again, it's just sophisticated business. This is why you set up businesses in Hong Kong or New York City or London. We are extremely proud of the work that the teams at Galton, Trifecta Retail Ventures, and Failed Ventures have done over the 70 businesses around the world. I especially want to thank William. Many entrepreneurs, after making some money, would simply sit back. Yes. I don't care. Now to Katerina herself, because Scott, let's be honest, he kind of implied, oh, look, she's Asian. She doesn't live in Scotland. What does she have to do with Scotland? She's in Hong Kong. It was a little bit weird. She says, I am an American and moved to Hong Kong as a child from Paris with my family before moving to the UK as a young adult. I moved back to Hong Kong, as many do, for my family, to use the place of my childhood as a tool in trying to create a witch hunt. And trying to create a witch hunt is meaningful and hurtful. Right, okay, yeah. The Hong Kong thing, Katerina not living in Scotland, should not be an issue. Well, all right, back to the letter. With respect to the other claims, there's been absolutely nothing, quote, new brought to light. We have bought a couple 100 acres of land in Scotland, have pledged to protect it and keep it as is forever, and plant a tree with every order we get through one of our tree planting partners. We have always been clear that our certificates are based on historic Scottish custom of calling landowners lairds, lords, or ladies, unquote, and that it does not grant you the right to rule or make you a member of any royal family, nor the right to a peerage. Okay, so that's the letter they sent to creators, and then I also spoke to a few creators, and I asked them what their contracts are like, and established titles, they told me established titles had let them out of their contracts. They had signed up to do promotional deals, and established titles said, you don't have to do them if you don't want. Between you and I is kind of a rare situation. It's not too frequently that businesses allow creators and people to back out of contracts like that. I'll give them credit for not holding creators' feet to the fire to continue to promote their product if they don't want to, even under contract. And like I said, I've reached out to a few creators and they've confirmed this. Then Katerina says, here's an interview we can watch. I'll put the link in the description. Katerina goes on to say, established titles is a fun gift meant for a good laugh and not to be taken too seriously. We bought a couple 100 acres of land in Scotland and we have pledged to protect and keep it. And we work with trees.org, which is Trees for the Future. Okay, Trees for the Future is indeed a registered 501c3 nonprofit. And then, let's see, she sent me a payment record. And right here we have, I might blur out some of this. I'm going to blur out the bank details. But we do have debit amounts of money going to Trees for a Future. So they spent $150,000, Trees for the Future, and then $10,000, $1,000, $3,000, $3,000, $3,000, $3,000, $7,500, $3,000, $5,000. Given these receipts, I would have to say it's not a scam. They are indeed sending money to the 501c nonprofit. So that is not a scam. That is not a fraud. And if Scott Schaefer had reached out to established titles, he could have confirmed it, that they were in fact donating their money to a 501c3 without inserting innuendo and scammy and shady and this and that and calling them a fraud or a scam. So they're not a fraud on the land preservation or a scam. They're not a fraud or a scam on the fact that they're donating to a 501c3 charity. We have verifiable proof. They let the content creators out of their contracts if they no longer wanted to work with them. And it comes down to, well, does the person buying this novelty gift really think they're getting a plot of land and can call themselves a lord or lady? I guess it comes down to marketing. The worst I think you could accuse established titles of being is deceptively marketed. Are they a scam company? No. Are they a fraud? No. But I'll leave that to your guys' decision. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this informative, insightful. Like I said, get the documents, have the conversations. Thank you for watching. Long video. See you in the next one. Bye.